I'd love to invite you to a free Reclaimed Woman Masterclass on June 5th. So this is for all my ladies who have followed the good independent girl rules and who still feel overwhelmed, resentful, and disappointed in their lives. You may think that you need to practice or learn or study how to be more soft and slow and abundant and pleasure-led as a feminine woman. Or maybe you think you have to be brave and courageous and finally stand up for what's yours. But the truth is that chasing femininity and fighting for power just leave you more wired, judgmental, and disconnected. I know what you need because I have walked this path into a deep love affair with myself. I know that you need a huge permission field, clear, manageable steps, and perhaps my fairy dust to help you remember who you are. Your femininity will naturally and spontaneously emerge when you feel safe. So learn how to give this safety to yourself and to attract those who offer it. I'll be teaching the 3 most important ways to turn pain into pleasure, including the source of all suffering and how to identify it, the only spiritual practice you'll ever need, and the key to true power as a woman. I want you to imagine what it would feel like to be safe in your body and in your world. No couples counseling, therapy, or international treaties required. To have clear intuitive signs in your body that you can trust. To experience creativity that inspires you to tears. To feel resilient in the face of judgment, criticism, and life curveballs. So join me for this free Reclaimed Woman Masterclass on June 5th at noon Eastern. There will be a special offer for 40 of the gals on the call. I will see you there. I'm Dr. Kelly Brogan. You may know me as a New York Times bestselling author of a book with an exploding pill on the cover, renegade psychiatrist, pole dancer, or honorary member of the Disinformation Dozen. What can I say? I'm a born provocateur. I've spent most of my recent life exposing deceptions, connecting dots, and discovering the secret places my inner victim is still waiting to be liberated. And now I feel called to help you reclaim all of your parts, your health, your sexuality, your power, and your expression, so that you can finally truly own yourself. I want to ignite in you that inner knowing and the pulsing vitality that lives beneath your disempowerment, disconnection, and resentment, so that you can audaciously, courageously, and playfully alchemize your struggle into the specific pleasure of who you are. This is Reclamation Radio, a Soulfire production. The conversation that follows is from my incredible collection, Faces of Fierce Femininity, where I sat down with the 12 women who have inspired my embodiment journey for real, raw, and uncensored inspiration. You can purchase the collection at kellybroganmd.com and at the link in show notes. I am here. I was just saying, I even feel a little bit nervous to speak to this superstar today, to Jaiya. And I want to, before we dive in, just sort of paint a little bit of the picture of the impact and influence that your work has had on my life trajectory, by sharing that many people who are listening are aware of my romantic travails. And that I have recently, it's actually been half a year, but I've left my second marriage and I'm in this process of becoming, right, as so many of us are in our different ways. And I was in a very, karmic, torrid, romantic 8-year journey that also was a very classic trauma bond. And so while I was, emotionally starving and had eroticized, as often happens, that, sort of ongoing emotional insecurity, I got to this place of having integrated and explored enough shadow material that I began to love myself. I began to love myself enough to recognize that this wasn't working for me and I could ask for something different. And that's when I became interested in erotic work. So this was a little over a year ago. And I said, you know what? I want to hire an erotic coach. And on some level, I thought, the only time I really feel connected to my partner is when we make love.
The rest of it is like a fight or flight, process of just navigating. And so maybe we can learn how to deepen that, together. And I hired Whitney, who is trained by you. And she, I thought, oh, okay, she's going to teach me all sorts of tantric techniques, and we're going to deepen our experience, in partnership, and it's going to fix everything. And of course, that began the process of this very, very deep exploration of even, more of my shadowy catacombs, and also working through your program, Erotic Breakthrough, and really beginning not only, to just sort of like attend to the process of getting to know myself, but it really sort of broke this conceptualization I had. It just shattered this concept that like I was supposed to do this with my partner. We were going to do this together. And it really was clear that this is an inside job. It's me first. And what I found through that work, through your work, and through working with her is God. I mean, literally, I found through my own body, through my own sensuality, through my own experience of learning about myself in this way, in the way that you teach so many and inspire so many to explore, I found that I can self-source. And once I, was sort of stepped away from this habitual, I'm sure you hear this all the time, like, you interact with people, and women probably specifically, who imagine that their partner is there to give them pleasure. Like their partner is there to know better than they do how to experience pleasure. And in fact, what I found is that, that wouldn't be available until I have a very deep awareness. And, ultimately this connection, this self-sourcing led me out of that marriage and on this, sort of public stage of resolving my Madonna whore complex, that's been many, many decades in the making. And so, I just wanted to share that, to set the stage. I mean, your work has absolutely changed my life. And I think of you as, I wonder, if people call you this, but as like a sexual shaman, right? You call yourself a somatic sexologist, right? And I know that you weave together sexuality and spirituality in such a beautiful, very accessible way. And so I wanted to just sort of like open up the conversation with this idea that we can't give pleasure, love, we can't give experiences to another that we are unable to offer ourselves. And for you to just sort of start to really allow us to marinate in this idea of like, why is it important? Like if I want my partner to take me to, ecstatic places, if I want my partner to contain me, if I want my partner to, be the one who is meeting these needs and honoring my desires, what does it take from me? What does it take from me to get to that place? And why then would we? I mean, I spent months and months and months of my life studying, through the guidance of your work, studying my own sensations in my body. Months, I'm in my mid 40s. Like now I talk to my kids about this, and they're little things, and I feel like, wow, if somebody had only ever introduced this earlier in life, this would probably be a curriculum in high school or something. But I'd love for you to speak to, this idea of really offering ourselves that. It sounds so cliche, even when I'm saying it, there's like a part of me that's like, oh, that's so annoying. But like offering ourselves that attention that we long for, from another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. First thing, congratulations on your journey. Like that's huge.
Yeah.
To me, that's endgame. It's like self-love and God right there. And so many people don't know that going on a journey of exploring their sexuality is often the final frontier of personal growth. The thing that we've made the most taboo is the thing that often leads us to the greatest revelations about ourselves and about who and what we are and purpose. And so just wow, on your journey. Thank you so much for sharing that and being willing to share that on a public forum and have these conversations.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And then to your question, this is what does it take as we go on this sexual journey? Because the sexual journey, to me, sexuality is just a tool. It's another pathway, just like psychedelics or dance or going into any of these altered states of consciousness. I don't even like the term altered states of consciousness. I like the term our natural state of consciousness, because I think ecstasy and pleasure and sensation, meeting sensation, are places where we find who we are naturally. Things like love. And again, it sounds so cliche when we're talking about it, because if you haven't experienced, it's like, oh yeah, self-love. What? We don't even know what that is, right? There's a little bit of an eye roll. loving myself. How many times have we heard that? But it's not until you actually experience it and know how to meet that experience that you go, oh, that's what everyone's been talking about. That's what love is. Oh, I've heard that a million times, but I never got it until this moment. And this is where words fail to describe some of these experiences. How do you describe an orgasm when you've never had one? How do you can read about an orgasm in a book, you can read the word orgasm, but the word is not the thing. And so having the experience of the thing is where I lead to. And that's where learning things like what you learned around meeting sensation, being with sensation. And that's you, that sensation that you experience is generated by this amazing body that we have. And so it takes that ability to quiet, to self-sense. We talk about mindfulness. I'm working on a book project with another teacher, Ori Zimmels, who's a philosopher. And we talk a lot about maybe it's not mindfulness, maybe it's self-sensing. We're sensing ourself. We're meeting the sensation of who we are. And so it takes introspection. It takes asking those big questions. Well, who am I as an erotic being? How do I choose in this? Even beyond that, what's the choice that I'm making about who I am and how I be in the world? And then there's also, what am I? Those are two different questions. So the moment we start to introspect and we start to inquire, and I think that that's what this journey takes, is that ability to go, well, wait a minute, let me quiet and let me inquire and let me see what's there. And then it's interesting, we talk about this individuality, but it also takes others. So having a guide, you had a person who helped you, because we co-regulate with others. 25 years of neuroscience shows us that we need other people. We are a species that relies on that. So sometimes I say, I just keep loving you until you learn how to love yourself. Like that's my job. My job is to love you until you recognize that love that is you yourself. And sex just happens to be one of the tools to, I don't even want to say getting there, but I think that's language that people understand, to getting to that place of love is through this exploration, this sexual journey. And it takes courage. I think that's the final thing I'll throw in there. You're going to be afraid. You're going to hit up against all those things, and courage is doing it anyway. Courage is saying yes to that journey, even though the fear comes up, even though the like, I don't want to sit with this experience, the pain comes up. Because we have a culture in which sexuality is taboo, and we're locked up and we're blocked, and we have all kinds of shit piled on it. And that's why I think it can be so profound, is because we've made it so taboo and locked up.
So much of the work, that I did in this past year was related to exactly what you're describing. And, as a psychiatrist trained, in a very Freudian institution in New York City, I really was able to draw from a lot of my, sort of more philosophical training around this triangulation with, the parents and the Oedipal complex, and how it is that we are turned against our own bodies, how it is that we're turned against our own animal impulses, our experience of desire, and even our experience of like vital force energy as little kids, right? And it could be as simple as, being reprimanded for jumping on the couch, or it could be, being shamed for masturbation, or whatever, more sexualized experiences might have been exposed to the light of judgment, and this idea that, we are at odds, trying to curry favor with the opposite gender parent, and, at odds with the same gender parent, seems very relevant to at least the lens that I look through now, where many of us, as you said, are in our own awakening process. And somewhere along the line, that's why I'm hosting this salon, somewhere along the line, you explore that all of this energy, literally your connection to the God space, your connection to, what obviously can be referred to as Eros, is behind that wall of shame. And how are you going to walk through it? And I see, as somebody who's been exploring the ways that women self-betray through the medical system, I see, ritualized penetration through pap smears, and medicalized birth, and the hijacking of our hormonal systems through birth control. And I say, well, no wonder, because we are not ourselves the guardians until we are, right? Mm-hmm. So there is a lot of work in your program around shadow material and shame. And it's not as simple, obviously, as just saying, well, I'm going to get over, whatever it is that is keeping me from owning my sexuality. I mean, for me, it really involves like a public display of, sort of almost like more cliche, like me in booty shorts and stripper boots
Mhm.
on a pole, like as a formerly like buttoned up, like white coat MD, and to just sort of see how I could play with these different energies. And a lot of folks did not like it because of, I think, the change, right? Like, how dare you change? And so I wonder, what you would say as somebody who obviously, I mean, there's so much in your energy around these topics that I think I really needed to see modeled, like because you're so grounded energetically, you have this very almost like familiar sweetness that somehow when you talk about like super raunchy shit, it just ends up it feels safe, like it feels okay. And even like, oh, well, of course I'm going where she's going. So I wonder, what you might say about how, as women, we can even just begin to crack the door of that shame wall. I mean, for me, it required looking at the scariest thing I could possibly be exposed for, whatever that might be, that I would be judged as like an attention seeking narcissistic whore or whatever. Like, who knew that was even in there? Like, who knew I cared about that? And that's why I was a match, relationally for people who might reflect that to me, et cetera. So I wonder, such a huge topic, but just even so that we know when it is that we're bumping up against that wall, right? Like we know when we're judging other women. That's been a huge thing for me. Like we know there's a lot there. This is like, so if we can start to navigate, oh, okay, that's my shame wall. Then with support and attunement, like you said, like that's what I was describing, even the feeling I have with you is an attunement to safety around these topics. Then at least we know we're on the path. Like this is just how the path is,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, a couple of things with the shame piece. One is, what's the internal dialogue? You already said that. Like, what are the things you say to yourself? Because that's the thing you're often saying about other women. So whatever you're saying about your own body, whatever your own inner mean person is, that critique, whoever that is, whatever that part of you is. I really love internal family systems and parts work. I didn't know that this is what I was doing for so many years, but I really love taking, well, what is that part of me that is the shame voice, is the voice of shame, that's shaming others and is shaming myself. And to remember that shame is the I am statement. I am fat. I am ugly. I am a narcissist. I am, a slut. I am a whore. Like those are and it's not coming from empowerment. It's coming from that feels bad. And then there's behavior, which is different than shame. And so there's the I did something that maybe I shouldn't do, right? And then there's how you feel about that and who you decide that you are as a result of that thing. And so what is that voice, naming that voice, then watching that voice and how it speaks about other people and the judgments that you have, because they're so interconnected. I see this all the time with people with vulvas who identify as women. It's like that voice gets so entrenched. It runs so much that we don't even notice it a lot of times. So that's one piece. The other thing is, what does shame feel like in your body? I'm such an embodiment person. So then you can start to notice, oh, that's what shame is for me. Shame is my cheeks flush. Shame is I get tense in my chest. Shame is this somatic experience. And can I sit with the somatic experience? Because what so many of us do is go, shame, shame, shame. No, 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 no. Don't feel that. Don't feel that. Shove it somewhere, tug it somewhere. With so many of ours, even orgasm. I see so many people who are like, cannot sit with the experience and the intensity of what orgasm is in their body. And so they run away. They create shame walls. They create these things that keep them from fully experiencing what's happening in the moment. So often it's like, here's what's happening in my body. Can I sit with the shame? Can I be a parent to that shame? Can I have a dialogue with that shame? Can I recognize that I'm generating shame for some purpose? And I started generating that usually very young, around, especially those of us who are in vulva bodies. We started that dialogue very young, from external voices, from culture, from all those things. And this is an unraveling. Oh, there's the shame voice. That's the collective culture. That's not even my voice, but that's the voice of good girls don't. That's the voice of now you're a witch and you're going to get, burned at the stake. That's the voice of all of that, because we don't just have our own internalized shame, we have the generational internalized shame. And research has shown that we hold that in our body, in our material, for up to 14 generations. So you got your grandma's shame, your mom's shame, your grandma's shame, you've got auntie's shame, you've got all of that. And especially for those of us who are on these journeys, we're doing work not just for us. We're doing work for our entire family structures. We're doing work for the collective of the feminine. And that comes up as we work through these layers, because shame isn't just one layer.
So interesting. I'm just thinking about, so my grandmother is Italian, from Italy, and she developed dementia at the end of her life. And I have all sorts of theories, about what that represents other than just some like medical problem. And as she began to sort of like slip away, she was living with my parents, and she was, in psychiatry, we call it, she was paranoid and delusional and all these things, and even somewhat violent. And she used to scream at my mom in Italian, "You're a whore. Why are all these men coming in and out of the house?" And I just thought of this the other day in like deep introspection around my mother line, and how, at that time, so this was probably like, I don't know, 10 years ago or so, if I had been ready, to do this work, I wonder if it would have even impacted her, because I see it as like, no one in my mother line has been ready, to do this work, has had the support, has had whatever it takes to begin to look at, like you said, not only the personal beliefs, not only the family of origin enculturated beliefs, but these big, big collective beliefs. I mean, I think it's best summarized as we will be killed for our, feminine energy. I mean, like the
depth of it. Yep. We'll be killed for our voices. We'll be killed for our expression as erotic beings. That is the depth of it right there. And that's where the shame comes in to protect us.
Of course.
It's a protector. I mean, I go, thank you, shame. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for that. I know that there were times when it wasn't safe, and thank you. I mean, shame is an adaptation to an adverse culture that we live in where it has not been safe.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more about parts work. It's been the other modality that has, I think buoyed me through this process of, and still does, this process of integration. So it's sort of speaking of, these inner dynamics and outer dynamics. I want to talk a little bit about sort of intentional energetic exchange and polarities. I remember watching a video of you in your program. I think it was the body mapping section. And I want to speak in a little bit more specifically around your work and what it entails. But suffice it to say that in this video, there's a man on the table, and you're demoing, what you call body mapping, which is essentially like this very structured path. I mean, you could explain it better, but I'll just say this structured path towards discovering what types of specific sensations in the different categories of blueprints are, what level of pleasing, right? And, I'm just watching your hands like move over this guy's body. And I had this experience of like, it's just like when like my body was like blown open. My mind was blown. I was like, I want to be simultaneously you as like, I felt like I want to be that woman who's working her hands like this sensual wands, and I want to be that man who is feeling what that feels like. And I could see like, as, sort of like, that's cute, Kelly. But what was in there was the smush and mix up of what it is to be the one giving, what it is to be the one receiving. And then, I'm speaking to Betty Martin in this salon, and, what it is to really sort of organize the intentionality of touch given, touch received. And that whole notion is entirely new to me as somebody who has been like sexually active since my teen years. It never occurred to me that I would benefit by looking at what my intention is energetically beyond like, oh, when my partner feels pleasure, I feel pleasure, and that's what we all say. And of course, there's like all sorts of victim consciousness, rescuer stuff in there, hiding in there. And I saw in that moment that I was like, I want it all. I want to give and receive and be all the things at once. And what you really help people to unpack is that there is a sort of conscious intention, there is complementarity, and there's really almost a responsibility that we each have as embodied beings to know what it is that we are bringing to the table in a given, sexual interaction, let's say, but maybe even, in our own sex play and sensual play. So I wonder if you could sort of speak to organizing, our sexual intentionality and what it is to really start to get to know who's giving, who's receiving, and why is that important? If everyone's having fun and feeling good, like, why does it matter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love how you're talking to Betty Martin with this too, because Betty was an influence on me as well. And what is the consciousness that we can bring to our sexual experience? And so that comes down to containers. Estelle Perel also talks about, like, what's the role? What are the active verbs that you're using within this? Is it give, receive, take, allow, refuse, share, play? Like, these are some of the verbs to even look at. So what's the role that you're playing? What are the things that you're playing with inside that container? And what do you a hell yes to? What's the like yes and what are the no's? And so to me, container is everything. Because once you have the container, you know where you're playing, your nervous system can relax and it can go to the edges. It actually gets more creative. When I was in theater school, we used to do these projects where they'd give us like 5 or 6 limitations. And those 5 or 6 limitations would then, or rules, would then create the scene or the session. And it was so great to have those limitations because without the limitations, there were too many possibilities and the system doesn't know where it's dancing, where it's playing. Like when we know, when we have that container, we can go, oh yeah, now I have a new idea. Oh yeah, I could play with that. I didn't even know I could do that thing. So new possibilities sometimes gets born out of having, I don't even like the word limitation as much as I like, what is the safe container for you? And in that, some of the things to decide are what are you a yes to? And that can be a journey. Just that question to explore before you even go into playing with another person is what's a yes in my body and what does the sensation of yes feel like? If everyone just tries that right now, like think of a moment right now where you were like, yes, oh my gosh, yes, I cannot believe what's happening. Like, yes, I want to do that thing. And you can imagine yourself in that yes, or a thing that you said yes to previously. And how's that feel in your body? So just I'll ask you because I have you here. What's yes feel like?
I love this question because I've recently explored how sometimes what can feel like a yes is like a habituated caretaker energy, right? So
Good distinction.
I've spoken about this a couple of times, that I had a really crazy experience recently of going to the car wash, right? And I did not set the container at all for the experience, right? Like everything related to cars is like not my thing. So I go there. I don't have enough time. I have a half an hour, but I don't know how much it costs. I don't know how long it's going to take. There's nobody in charge I can ask. It's like just like a bunch of dudes running around. So no container, right? And long story short, I'm there for an hour and I'm late to meet my girlfriend and I am trying to like leave. And the guy who's finishing up my car starts asking for he starts like, whatever. He asks for my Instagram handle and he's like, can I follow you on Instagram? And do you live around here? And all this kind of stuff, right? And then I went and I literally was pulling out and I crashed my car, pulling out like seriously. So I was like, okay, that's what self-betrayal looks like in the material world. Almost like this immediate energetic like repercussion to this experience of knowing that I had a need, that I hadn't set up, the conditions for my need to be met, or even assessed whether my need could be met in those conditions. And then I ended up trying to like appease and manipulate because I was in fawning, like fight or flight kind of a thing. And so through that example, I found, okay, well, it felt fine. It felt like fine for me to give him my Instagram handle, that was not a big deal. And the difference between what might feel like a yes, because it's a habitual, like, I can handle this, I got this, it's fine, versus like
the fuck yes.
A real yes. For me, it feels like annihilation, like the best kind of like pixelating into bits. Like it's like it feels like it moves up my body and I want to fall back into like glitter. And it's not hugely common that I have that experience, although once you have it, and it's delight. Like I think if I were to put a word, it's like the delight of being on this like human path, this human. Yes, very specific.
Yeah, I love that word delight. Yeah. Just seeing how that journey to your yes, just that, all the things that had you come to like, wow, this is what a true yes feels like. This is what self-betrayal feels like. This is what the familiar pattern of being a pleaser looks like. Those are all somatic anchorings. And when you pay attention to how each one of those feels, then you can start to really create healthful containers in which you can be in delight. You're just in delight when you have that level of consciousness and you're choosing that. And that's also self-responsibility. If you had been self-responsible in getting that container made when you went to that, you would have had a very different experience. And yet, I look at those experiences to go, oh, that's teaching me something. It just showed me something so powerful, because look at what also came out of that moment is like, now you have a new awareness, a new consciousness. And we're always learning. We're always learning about what we need to love ourselves. And I think that there's a mythology around self-love and unconditional love. And that mythology is that it doesn't have boundaries, especially for those of us in helping professions, especially those of us who, are very empathetic. And that's constantly a learning. It's been a learning for myself, is like, oh, unconditional love means for me, from me, which means I get to have boundaries. I get to say no in this sexual container to X, Y, and Z. And I get to say yes to X, Y, and Z. And then I get to see like a Venn diagram, like where do we dance in our yes together? And is this a partner who I want to dance with? If it's sex with another human body, if it's sex with myself, I still have a container and a consent conversation, because I want to get conscious to, wait a minute, my body and my mind might get really excited about that new giant dildo, but my body is like, hell no, you're not putting that thing in me right now, at least not with an auto warm up.
I love it. No, it's true. I mean, I speak with Whitney in our discussion about how often it is, as women in our self-pleasure practices, that we are like doing to ourselves,
Right?
doing the pleasure to ourselves, and that there is rape consciousness, like, really beneath that kind of unattuned, imposition. And this concept of containers has been absolutely life-changing for me, to recognize that, in every little scene of my life, I have a responsibility to set the conditions for my experience of safety. And you could even, I like to term it in terms of gendered polarity, like that masculine container is my own, right? And how can I expect that to be reflected back to me with integrity until and if I'm, practiced at establishing that.
So I've always loved the idea of supplementation in natural form. I don't take really any regular supplements, and I am also obsessed with optimizing my body's water integrity, and drinking more water isn't the vibe from what I've learned. So I know that it is the minerals that count. And unlike other mineral and hydration supplements, what I take, Kinton, is plasma seawater. It's totally natural. There's no additives, no sugar, no nothing. So you can take hypo or hypertonic solutions based on your needs. And you can get these from Quicksilver Scientific, which is the only brand I personally trust with this kind of a product. You can check out the link in show notes or head to quicksilverscientific.com/Kelly B and use the code Kelly B at checkout to save 15% off your first purchase.
So I'd love to sort of like segue into this like very exciting and impassioned exploration. I've taken a hugely deep dive, and I've been celibate since November. So, I'm doing all this in the virtual space of my own container, but into BDSM and conscious kink. And I want to speak in a little bit more about the blueprints themselves, but mine is Shapeshifter, which is hugely validating. I think a lot of what my coach Whitney spoke about when she talked about, this work and the blueprints is like, it is part of the shame alchemy. To basically, what my blueprint told me is that so much of what I thought was weird or wrong or too much about me and my sexual interests and needs is not only normative, but it's like so common that it's like one of the types, right? Like that's it's so validating and relieving of a lot of shame. It's like, of course, like the love languages, once you start to see, we distribute in these different ways. Mm-hmm. And my secondary one is kink, right? And I've never really had like a relationship to whatever I might have preconceived as probably physical kink, like, including, sort of like, restraints or caning, flogging, that kind of thing. It just never really, not plus, not minus, just never really like. And then, you introduced this concept to me anyway of psychological kink and what that means, and how I have like fetishized really even anticipation, like that moment before my lover's mouth touches mine is like more ecstatic than any cock penetration, that could ever be available, right? And the energetics of that, the play of that. And so I wonder, for me, I could go on and on about this because I love this topic, but for me, I see such deep significance to kink psychology in our collective moment, because I think that, I think women have come to a place, and I imagine you might agree, like I've come to a place of personal empowerment that is so sufficient that we're beginning to really feel the bankruptcy of it, right? Like we're beginning to really feel that it's bereft of something that we so deeply long for. Mm-hmm. And so we're recognizing that what we say we want, I want to be empowered. I want to own my own house and my business and all the things. I want to do what men do, leading. What we say we want is actually at odds and in inner conflict with what we deeply long for. I'll speak for myself as like, a pretty sort of secularly empowered woman, that the concept of intentionally and consciously submitting to a partner in consensual play, power play, is so alluring to me that it feels like the arrival, like it feels like the ultimate destination, and also the playground for me to alchemize like so much of my residual shame, So do you think that as women, we ultimately, in many ways, and just to generalize, but certainly women who have this sort of more kink typing, that we want what we've been railing against, right? Like we want the consensual version of that which we've been fighting, that all of these dynamics of human dominance and oppression that are non-consensual. I mean, you could characterize all of the human suffering since the dawn of time as being unconsented kink dynamics, right? And that's why, I'm also speaking to Carolyn Elliott, about
existential kink.
Exactly. About what, how this is relevant to the ways that we enjoy our suffering, and what does that even mean? And is it relevant to everyone? So, when we look at this kind of complementarity, I wonder if, obviously as an expert, like if you could speak a little bit to, what do people get out of BDSM and conscious kink, and why would somebody enter into that kind of container where there is an organization of roles into hierarchical power, right? Why would we ever want that, right? Isn't that what we're, railing against?
Right. Yeah. It's a wonderful question. And I think first, just looking at the kinky blueprint, it's the taboo blueprint. So it's the taboo of it that turns us on. It's that I'm not supposed to surrender. This is something I am supposed to rally against. But oh my God, it feels so good. Right in that is the taboo. That's the psychological taboo of giving someone power over you if you're in the surrendered spot. But then there's also the I'm not supposed to be in power. And then that's the turn on. So it's whatever it is that is taboo for you, that is where the turn on comes from. And I think that there's something for people who are in power, those of us who are in vulva bodies, who are in empowering roles. And as we've gained more power, I think that there is something for relinquishing that and relaxing that and allowing someone to take over and tell us exactly what to do so we don't have to think about it. It's like a moment when our neocortex gets to relax. We could just be in our primal brainstem and enjoy ourselves. I think it also is a place where, and I've seen this a lot in my client base, where if we're harboring shame still, kink is a great place for us to go, oh, the other person maybe had the orgasm. The other person tied me up because I relinquished the power over. So it's their fault. It's sort of a way to take shame and keep it. And now all of a sudden my psyche's safe to explore things I wouldn't have otherwise explored because someone else bossed me to do it. So yeah, there's a lot of layers to it. And I think that when it comes to exploring these things that feel edgy, feel taboo, feel not okay, it's sometimes dipping your toe in, titrating it, seeing like, oh, that was okay. I survived. That was good. That felt really good. And then keep like exploring. And I like to inquire. So what is it about this that turns me on? What is it about this fantasy that turns me on? What is it about giving power over that turns me on? And is that healthy for me? Does that feel healthy? Does that feel helpful? Because we can also have things that turn us on that are not good for us. And I know a lot of us have experienced that where we're in a relationship, where it's like we know it's not good for us. And yet we stay in it because there's something in it that is turning. And that's where the existential kink work comes in is, okay, I obviously like this because it's appearing in my life. So what can I unravel or what can I look at? And do I want to keep making that choice? I'll tell a story from my own personal life. Like I definitely have a kink of falling in love with men who love my heart and they just want to love me, love me, love me. But they have very low sex drives. And for Jaiya, who has like a sex drive that's through the roof, this is a very interesting existential kink. So men really want to love my heart. I actually had one man say to me, yeah, I don't want to fuck you. I just want to love you. And it's like, what the fuck? Somebody fuck me already, And so I had to look at how much I was actually enjoying that game.
Right. It was safer, maybe. Yeah.
It's safe. It feeds my energetic longing. I mean, I have a lover who I have been in love with for 20 years and we've never had intercourse. Oh my God, it's delicious. I mean, we're just in proximity together and everything starts vibrating, and I had to admit to myself that as much as it's painful, I love the game of longing. And that is it's an energetic kink, but it is my kink to not be able to have the thing and to be in that energy of like, everything's vibrating because it's been 20 years and we still haven't had intercourse, And then once I admit that I love it, there's not as much pain in it anymore. The pain in it, the suffering in it goes away because now I can meet the experience for what it is and that I'm in freedom of choice, that I am actually consciously choosing this. And now I'm going to take responsibility for this. And when I'm done with it, I'm done with it. And I hit a point where it's like, all right, I'm done with this. No more of this pattern. I'm not calling in any more lovers who love my heart and don't want to have sex with me. I am calling in people who want to have a physical, sexual, blueprinted relationship, because I hit all right, enough.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's one of the most amazing things about, at least my understanding of kink dynamics, is that there is so much intentionality and consent and agreements and acknowledgement of needs and preferences, and that it can be a container where both people's needs are met in complementarity and the needs are so different. And, as somebody who is a deep believer in compatibility and complementarity of needs, like that you cannot, once I recognized what my needs were, I had to leave my relationship, like I just was choosing not to be in ownership of them. And that's how and why I stayed. But, it's not a compromise, right? It's not this egalitarian, like we are both lovers gazing into each other's eyes kind of a dynamic. It is a compatibility based relationship where one person's needs and the other person's needs are both met. It's beautiful, right? It's beautiful. No one is compromising. And I think that's part of it, right? Because if you were to really look at your needs in that kind of dynamic, they would not be met. And that's obviously why you're, at a place now where you can own your needs and value them enough, not compromise them.
I love what Kelly Bryson says, which is that compromise is resentment 50-50.
Oh,
so don't ever compromise because you're actually just building resentment and armoring in your body and in your mind and in your heart. So what is it? And it's interesting too, because it's like, okay, well, maybe my need for sexual intercourse will never be met. And is there another way that need could get met? Maybe in the energetic blueprint, or is there a way that need can be met by not having a monogamous relationship? And like I mentioned, I have multiple lovers, so like, what is it where is the place where you and I dance that we stay healthy and that we are able to meet each other's needs and not go into, like you mentioned at the top of the show, trauma bonding. You could also call it karmic, where we're clearing the karmic stuff as opposed to staying in our karmic loop.
Yep.
We don't want to stay in the loop. We want to spiral out of the loop, which takes making new neural nets in our brains. The brain will go back to what's familiar over and over and over again, even if it's not good for us. So we get in this loop and we seek to change our experience, but we seek to change our experience by changing a circumstance. And oftentimes the way that we change the circumstance is by doing a bunch of stuff. The invitation that place that I'm going with a lot of new teachings, and the invitation that I'm inviting people into is the finding the place of your I amness. Who are you? And when you find that place of I amness, you can realize that you are the generator and the source of your experience. And it isn't about, you can have the best circumstances. I work with billionaires, I work with celebrities, I work with the 1% of the world. Circumstance does not create an awesome experience. All these amazing circumstances can create a very shitty experience. Yet we all seek to be that. We all seek to have the house and the money and the great sex and the orgasms and the relationships and the kids and like all these things. I say in my life, I checked all the boxes. Mm-hmm. I checked every box and I still was having a shitty experience. Really? So can you have the realization that you generate your own orgasmic experience? This is ultimate self-responsibility here. You generate your abundance. You generate from the source of who you are, the wellspring of who you are, your experience. And once you have that, of course, then you can create action. Of course, then circumstance shifts, but we have it the wrong way. And so when we go on this sexual journey, we often think, oh, if I could just have this kind of orgasm, or oh, if I could just have this kind of relationship, if I can just, that isn't what does it. It's the, I am an orgasmic being. I am ecstatic. I live in delight. And then you delight in who you are. You delight in this life because you have the foundation from which every experience can be created in love, in kindness, and compassion. And that changes the world.
I've really come to, agree and to feel that this erotic reclamation it's the path, as a activist for many, many years and somebody who's railed against all that I felt was wrong on the outside, of course, for those who needed my support, right? Like these anonymous victims or whatever, I really came to the place of shadow work where I saw that's only ever going to perpetuate the victim consciousness that underpins that kind of hierarchical projection, right? Like it's once you get into like, inner child work and parentification of authority, it's so obvious, right? Like I'm like fighting against bad, I call it, bad daddy government, bad mommy medicine. And right. I don't know that maybe it's just a layer, maybe it's a phase or whatever. I don't know it's the way. And that's why, coming into this work and coming into this understanding of finding God through your own erotic energy and self-sourcing in that way so that you take radical responsibility for how you feel and you recognize that you are in charge of how you feel. You are the one. And there are myriad, ways to alchemize that, to work with that, to expose that to the light of your understanding and awareness and to shift thought patterns. I mean, there's so much support out there, for this process once you choose. And I think if we all were to walk in the direction of this erotic reclamation, the trajectory we're on as a collective would fundamentally change. I'm sure you agree with that, like that this is part of it. And I wonder, there's a module in your program on, I'll call it like lifestyle, like health and medicine and wellness and, what it is, which of course is very aligned with my perspectives and teachings. And I wonder if you often see a disconnect, because I imagine you do, that people think like, oh, sex and sexuality is over here and it doesn't really have much to do with what you eat, right? And like how you care, how you detox or whatever. What does one have to do with the other? This is just like, behavioral techniques. And the other is like, a unrelated realm. I really appreciated seeing that all under one umbrella, but I imagine you see that there's like a lot of disconnect in the world of sexology.
Yeah, I think there is a place where we start to realize that everything is interconnected. And sexual health and wellness is one of the precursors to what's happening in our overall health. So, for example, when you start to see men who have erectile dysfunction, the first thing that should be checked, they should be looking at is what's happening with heart health and cardiovascular health. And that's often a precursor for something that's going on there. Our sex hormones are our youth hormones. And so when we are sexually vital, our aliveness is boosted. Our vitality is boosted. Sexuality is fuel for living in a juicy body. It's like resource to me. And when we start to, I have the analogy of like, if you're a juicy grape on a vine, right? It's like, you don't want that to not have enough water, enough sunlight, enough, you want to blossom, you want to ripen. And it takes having an environment that is favorable. What do human beings need? Just like as if we were plants, and taking care of this body system. And that is not just the physical. I look at various realms. So we have the physical realm, yes, of our physical body, but there's also the psyche emotional realm. And what's the health of the psyche emotional realm? What's the health of the energetic realm? What's the health of the biochemical realm? So that we're really looking at these four distinct realms. And I can even go beyond these realms into what's happening in the transpersonal realm and existential realm. I think right now we create a lot of otherness. And you were talking about that here right before this question of I can create toxicity in myself by fighting against the other and making other enemy, as opposed to, and that doesn't shift consciousness. That doesn't help shift anyone's consciousness. There's that quote, you can't make a change. You can't come up with solutions at the same level of consciousness that the problems were created. And at low level consciousness, everywhere we look, there are nothing but problems without solutions. At high level consciousness, there are no problems. So when we look at fundamentally, we all want the same things. We all value the same things. We just go about getting it in very, very different ways, sometimes ways that are not the most helpful, highest conscious ways. And so even in your own system, what is the state of consciousness from which you are functioning in this world? Is it the delight for being alive and the love of life and the joy of life? And I'm not here to be a Pollyanna, where we're not, there's a lot of fucking human suffering in this world. There are a lot of people who are trapped in hell realms and addiction and suicide. And it isn't about let's be all love and light. We have to really honor and look at the whole, but from that level of consciousness that I am that one who is also suffering and not orgasmic. And can I bring some of that? Can I bring some of that to someone who isn't? I was reading a children's story yesterday. It was so beautiful. And it was called The Three Questions. It's based on a Tolstoy. And I just wow. So I'm always thinking how do I serve? How do I serve best? What is the right action here? And the questions what is the best time? That best time is now. Who is the right one to serve? The one who's right in front of you. And what is the right action? The one that you're doing, the one that is right for this moment, And this all links to sexuality. Sexuality is fundamental and part of life. We are not separate from it. We're all a product of it. Sex is everywhere. Just look out your window and there's bugs having sex or birds or, whatever, The sun is making love to the earth every day. I mean, sex is everywhere. And so it is not separate. It's not something that we compartmentalize. It needs to be integrated back into wholeness. And in some ways, I think it already is whole. We just have to remember it. It doesn't even need to be integrated. We just need to remember that this is what the human experience is about, is sex. Sex is you. It's part of you.
I think many of us sort of get arrested in this maturational place where we have this fantasy like sex should just happen, it should just happen perfectly. And if it doesn't, then we'll just either, look the other way or, we'll blame our partner or maybe blame ourselves. And that it's just, supposed to organically unfold. And part of, at least we were talking about that transition from a certain dimension of consciousness that's very attached to the kink of the suffering and the kink of the problem versus the, stepping into claim of the solution. What I found is that the bridge is choice, right? The bridge across from one to the next is the reclamation of choice and the power of choice, right? That when I recognize as a sovereign being, I don't need to participate in aspects of society that don't meet my needs, then I see, I have choice to actually create my own, experiences that do meet my needs and do serve my values or whatever it is. And that sort of choice energy field is very, there's evaluation, there's observation, there's sort of assessment. It's not as romantic, right? As I just want this to work,
Right.
It's childlike energy, right? And so I do think that that's a huge part of what the blueprints offer is It's getting down into the nitty gritty of almost study and analysis in a terrain that your childlike consciousness just wants to work. Just why can't it be already perfect? Why can't daddy already love me perfectly? Why can't mommy be there for me? And really taking responsibility for the choices that you have, right? Once you get to know your blueprint, once you get to, map your body, once you get to understand what words turn you on and what ones don't, then you can consciously engage, not only in your own, sort of containment practices, but also with a partner. And this reclamation of choice, consent, all of these very, clarifying energies allow us to go to the places we always wanted to go. So I'd love for you to speak to, as we wrap up, what you feel that knowing your blueprint, and we're going to provide obviously your incredible quiz. What does knowing your blueprint offer your life? Like, is it just as simple as like, oh, that's interesting, to know about myself? Obviously I've told you it was life-changing for me. So why do you think it's important, that we each know our blueprints?
Yeah, it comes down to that inquiry of knowing yourself. Who are you as an erotic being? And once you know, you can give yourself permission to be yourself. So that's one piece. And then another piece is having a language to share with others. I am an energetic, and this is what that looks like. And this is how I'm turned on. And it allows us to take responsibility because we have a language to communicate about sexuality and about who we are, and take that responsibility to say, here's who I am. Here's what I like. Here's what I want. Do you want to play there with me? Great. Who are you as an erotic being? Let me get to know who you are so I can see if I'm at choice to play with where you are. So it gives us language. It also gives us compassion for others. Like, okay, I know that I'm a high energetic on the quiz. If somebody, you take the quiz and you're like, oh my gosh, high energetic. My partner is super high sexual and I have zero sexual. I'm now at choice over, do I want to take that journey to learn my partner? Is my partner now willing to take that journey to learn who I am? And if we're both willing, then we've got a journey together. If one of us is unwilling, then we have a different choice to make. Am I willing to stay in this relationship where my needs aren't going to be met? And play that game. And that is a choice. Now you're conscious of taking that choice. And that may be painful, and it may be more painful for you to leave. That's right? That's going to be the choice that you're making. And how are you making that choice? Are you making that choice still from unconscious wounding? Or are you making that choice from an empowered place?
It's amazing the poetic overlaps, of so much of this language with so many other dimensions of self-reclamation. And I'm just over the moon that your work is out there and exists, because this would be a difficult thing to translate from scratch. So I want to end, Jaiya, by just asking a question I've been asking of all the gals, which is, if there's one tool over the years that you have found is like a real go-to for you to bring you out of your head and into your body, like one practice or one tool, what would you say that it would be?
One tool. I have to pick one.
Okay. I know. Actually, yeah.
One tool to bring me out of my head and into my body is probably the one that I use the most is movement. Personally, that's mine. If I had to give it to other people, I'd take intense sensation, impact, kink. Exactly. Intense sensation will bring you instantly in your body.
Yeah. And that's part of why it can be so helpful for women who, or I keep saying women, but people who dissociate, right, easily and sort of have that defensive structure.
Give it a good slap.
Give it a good slap. I love it. On that note, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart and deepest parts of my body. And I'm just so grateful for your work and really excited to introduce your work to those who might not otherwise have encountered it, and just keep being you.
Thank you. It's all I can be.